begin this morning with the issue of mass resignation or defection, which is rocking the National Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Party. An alarm is being raised by the media office of the party's national chairman, Secondus, that a strong party stalwart is bent on hijacking the party structure. According to the media office, Secondus wondered why, few months to the national convention of the party, somebody is rooting for a caretaker committee to run the affairs of the party. Meanwhile, 4 National Working Committee members of the People's Democratic Party are threatening to resign from their positions. They are threatening to quit if the leadership crisis in the party is not resolved. This comes after 7 deputy national officers of the party resigned their positions, citing poor leadership by the Secondus-led executive. However, the PDP spokesperson, Kola Ologbondinyo, says the party has activated an internal conflict resolution mechanism to reconcile group members, and PDP governors are set to meet on Monday over the issue. Well, more resignations from the opposition party.
More resignations and defections, probably. I think we've seen the first defection. That's into Joy Modi are going to the APC. But one thing is certain, all of this is a fight for the soul of the party. And like we said yesterday, it draws that conclusion that we don't have party ideology. You know, what does the party stand for? It's about the strong and the big men in the political parties and how everything should work in their favor. This is what the fight is all about. The fight is even, and it's out there, and it's square. Some people in the party think that Secondus, the incumbent chairman of the party, will not do their bidding. So they're trying to get him out. And these people, and probably when you look at the antecedents and Secondus, they were very good friends before. You know, bedmates, if you can probably use that word. But you know, the thing about politics is you don't have permanent enemies and permanent friends. So these people, or this group of people, have activated the plot to take Secondus out. And all of this is the fallout of that. And that's why, yes, there's another argument that says it's not that easy to take out Secondus. You know, the argument was made by Mark Jacob when he was here yesterday. Even Kola Ologbondinyo had made the argument constantly and said, okay, we'll activate the party's internal dispute resolution mechanism. But these powers that be are very prime powers. Who are these people? I don't know. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar came out to say that I'm not part of those. It's a screaming headline in one of the dailies this morning. I'm not part of those people. But what is obvious and is out there is that some people that have spent a lot, that have sacrificed a lot for the party, that have become, you know, the financial base of the party, think it's time for them to get the party to do their own bidding. There are words going around that it might be in connection to 2023 presidential ambition. But that's still in the works. So, and Secondus might not want to play ball as regards that. So that's where the big fight is. But when you look at it, apart from the PDP, it's not only the PDP this is happening. The APC too is having its internal wars as regards, you know, 2023 posturing and the likes. But only time will tell. We'll see if Secondus will retain his job or this other power bloc will be able to usurp Secondus and take him out of the frame of things.
The party has barely 4 months to its convention.
Well, look, as we move closer to 2023, on this program, I guess we'll be doing a lot of political analysis. But with regard to what we have seen this morning, the headline story is about the People's Democratic Party. And there are certain specific points, in my view, that need to be made. The first is, 1, the People's Democratic Party should learn from history. As I was pointing out to Mark Jacobs yesterday, some people may disagree with that line of analysis, but I think that, you know, in the lead up to the 2015 elections, the People's Democratic Party mismanaged its own internal democratic processes. When some governors decided to leave the party, they even walked out on the party at a public event at the Eagle Square. The story inside was that, look, if anybody wants to leave, they can leave. This party is strong enough, you know. And that perception helped to put the People's Democratic Party into great trouble. And the PDP, of course, lost the election. So it was not just about the, aggressiveness, the hypertensive, opposition represented by the APC. It was also about failures within the party. Will history repeat itself? This is a question that the leaders of the People's Democratic Party should ask themselves. The second question is this. Well, we have had defections. Now we have the defection of Senator Joy Emodi, a member of the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is composed largely of, the people who founded the party. Many of them, they've been there since, the party emerged in 1998. And Joy Emodi has been there from the very beginning. She served that body as a presidential liaison officer, and she could be considered, one of the strong, members of that party from the Southeast. And now she too has spotted as to borrow an expression from the telcos. I don't think it's something that anybody should take, as just another event.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the governors, they are latecomers, to the party. Some of the governors that deported, they got to the positions that they got to because they had privileged godfathers that they turned against, and they suddenly became important because they found positions of influence. But Joy Emodi is one of the original founders of the party. So that's a very bad signal to have 7 members of the National Working Committee walking away, and to have a person like Senator Joy Emodi also walking away. Now, the third question that I would like to raise is that with all these defections from the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, where are the hidden hands? And these hidden hands may not just be located within the party. Maybe they are also outside. And in this regard, there are 2 levels of consideration. The first is, okay, within the party, we have been told that there is a certain gentleman called Inyesom Wike, who is buying people. Well, okay, even if that is the case, how far will it go? Because yes, maybe Wike himself should be reminded that if it is indeed true that he's the one sponsoring these defections within the National Working Committee, maybe these same people will collect his money, they will say they have defected, then the party, the conflict resolution mechanism within the party will be kick-started, and then the people will collect his money. 2-3 weeks' time, they will say, well, our party has spoken to us, and we have had a change of mind. We are committed to the party. Our grievances have been addressed, and they will come back, and they are not likely to return his money. Either him or anybody that is giving anybody any money. And I'm trying to pursue the line of argument by the Secondus camp. So at the end of the day, it comes to nothing. Particularly in the light of the fact that the party convention is just a few months away in December. But if the hidden hands are outside the party, then that's something we need to worry more about. Because you could then have, some other forces, maybe in the APC or elsewhere, who will try to sabotage the PDP, eliminate any form of opposition, and present Nigerians with a one-party state in 2023. But we must also speak to the politicians. Nobody should collect money, either within or without, inside or outside, with the purpose of drilling the future of Nigeria's democracy and ensuring that Nigeria ends up willingly, on the basis of some other people's permutations with a one-party state. And Nigerians should take note in that regard. Well, we'll take a short break now.
All right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Rotus, over to you this morning. Great to have you, Rotus.
All right. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Adesua. Good morning to all our viewers. A whole lot to get to, so let's quickly get through it as quickly as possible. First of all, the Federal Executive Council, beginning in Nigeria, has approved $2.7 billion for the equity stake that the NNPC, the state oil company, wants to take in the Dangote refinery. So, I mean, we knew this was coming. So if you look at the way startups are valued, right, I think they wanted to take a 20% stake, a $2.7 billion 20% stake, if you divide, gives you a $13.5 billion valuation for the Dangote refinery, just basing it on that equity stake. Let's quickly move on more. On the Federal Executive Council, they've also approved $1.4 billion for the Warri, and which is where I'm from, and the Kaduna refinery. That is, of course, sequel to the $1.5 billion that's been approved for the Port Harcourt refinery. There has been opposition to these refinery revamps and the price tag. You're putting 2.7 billion, 20% equity stake in Dangote refinery, private sector, and yet you're putting, what's that now? 1.5 billion, 1.4, 2.9 billion, almost $3 billion now in these refineries that, remember, lost 104 billion naira over 13 months and still paying salaries for staff. So there you go. We move from that to Ikeja Disco. Ikeja Disco says that the federal government owes the bulk of the 70 billion naira in customer debts that's being owed to them. They say they have the most prepaid meters of all the discos in the country. They're also saying that, you know, some of the challenges they're facing, foreign exchange challenges, people bypassing meters, and the usual stuff we've been talking about in the power sector. So that's the Ikeja Disco. Again, just for everybody knows, it is the government institutions that owe the bulk of debts that are being owed to, on the customer side, being owed to the discos. We move now from Nigeria to Ghana. There's been a hashtag Fix the Country protest that have been going on in Ghana. There's a couple clips that I want to take a listen to. Let's take a look at the first one now.
Did you die? Did you die? Did you die? As this demonstration has happened, did you die? Did you die? As the youth came here to register their displeasure, did you die? Did you die? As we came to show that we are united, did you die? Did you die? As we call for accountability, did you die? Did you die? Ghana government, any day want to do demonstration, please allow us because you will not die. Would they die? No. Would they die? No. Allow us. Did you die? Did you die? No. Ghana government, did you die? Did you die? Did you die? Allow us. Thank you very much.
Why are you here? Why?
The reason why I'm here, I'm a youth. Look at my life. 35 years, I have nothing to do. And Akufo-Addo and the ministers, they are taking salaries, taking double salaries. And they are even saying that they are going to pay their wife. Why? What wrong have you committed? Why should you be in our motherland and we are suffering? Why? Why? Is Ghana more than those who are in US? They fix their system. They make the system work. So they should let our system work. So they will also work and sweat. Look at us.
I'm often in Ghana weekend.
All right, so the very first clip was a response to the Ghanaian government initially trying to halt the protest. This is the, again, fix the country protest. It was supposed to happen about 2-3 months ago, but the Ghanaian government said that they couldn't gather because of COVID concerns and some other constitutional issues. So they had to actually go to court to make this happen, which is why you had the first gentleman saying, you know, did you die? All we wanted to do was register our displeasure. The second one was really hostile with that young lady. In fact, we had to cut out some of those clips because she actually used some very strong language. 35 years old, can't find work. You know, look, from a Nigerian perspective, we praise Ghana a lot. We talk about how great they are with, you know, things going on there. But under the packaging that Ghana has put pretty well, there's a lot of economic hardship. Youth can't find jobs, and that's what's been going on with the protests that we've seen in Ghana over the last 24 or 48 hours. So, and it was started on social media. It actually started on Twitter with the hashtag Fix the Country. An influencer put that hashtag out, and then they gathered together, and that's what you see. From Ghana, we go to Egypt. President El-Sisi is calling for a hike in bread prices. Very touchy subject. Egypt has been subsidizing bread now for decades. In fact, it led to riots in 1977 or so. So he's finally come out, President El-Sisi, and said, look, we can't continue to subsidize bread. I think he said that a loaves of bread costs less than a stick of a cigarette or something. So he didn't give a specific number as to, I think bread in Egypt cost the equivalent of 32 cents. I mean, it's really cheap. The government's been subsidizing bread for quite a while. And in fact, if you think of the process that the Arab Spring that led to the removal of the last Egyptian leader, bread subsidies, bread prices were tied to it as well. There's a report, I think they're putting together a committee that is supposed to study bread prices and now come with a recommendation on by how much bread subsidies to be removed. Isn't it interesting across Africa? subsidies continue to be a topic. Finally, in South Africa, there's a report that's been put out by a think tank that says that South African inequality has not changed since apartheid. On top of all the reforms and all the government initiatives that have been put forward trying to reduce income inequality in South Africa, it hasn't really moved the needle. The report also says that unrest will continue to happen unless bold, serious reforms in South Africa take place. Unemployment in South Africa rivals Nigeria in the 30%. In fact, it might even be 40% in South Africa. So that's our African business update.
I mean, I'm not surprised, Rotus, because when you look at it critically, it's not really changed. Once the return to democracy happened, maybe inclusive democracy, I should say, in '94, with Mandela coming in, yeah, there were some reforms to tilt things towards the black community, but they've not picked on. It's still pockets. And when you see the black people that have even done well, there's no real capitalism. It's just still that right-wing sort of socialism. You know, who are the guys that have gotten along? The guys that were close to the ANC, the likes of Cyril Ramaphosa himself, that's worth over $600 million, that was president. And because of his closeness to the ANC then, he could bring in, I think it was a McDonald's franchise into South Africa, and they own a couple of other franchises. So it's just been right-wing socialism, not capitalism, even among the black community. And that's why they need to evenly distribute wealth and bring about social mobility. This guy talks a lot about it. I forget his name now. He used to be at the Institute of Race Research in South Africa. He wrote a book about the future of South Africa. He writes a lot about it. And South Africa is like that doomsday scenario. And no matter what you say or think, the wealth is normally skewed towards the white population. When you look at the likes of Pick and Pay, look at the likes of ShopRite, look at the likes of, what's it called now, other departmental stores, Checkers and the likes in South Africa, it's always skewed towards the white people. They own most of the wealth in South Africa, and that must be evenly distributed. And how do you do that? With a lot of accountability and investment in education. A lot of people are not completing school in South Africa. Ghana, is obvious what is happening. 12%, unemployment rate, inflation rate inching up to 10%. There are a lot of things that are wrong in the Ghanaian economy.
Just quickly, I just wanted to say, we keep doing the same things and expecting different results. What do you think will be different this time around with the refineries, servicing redundancy, and with the whooping debts from government agencies to the Power Holding Company of Nigeria or the distribution companies? Every government agency gets a budget for power. So what is the problem here? Are they just bad debtors?
Right, so on the refineries, look, it doesn't make economic sense to be revamping those refineries at that cost. But the government is going forward with it. They believe that they're making the right decision. They should be sold off. We'll see what numbers come out. Mele Kyari said that NNPC is going to post its first ever profits to Nigerians. We'll see what the numbers say. But those refineries are moribund, and it just doesn't make an economic sense to spend over $3 billion revamping them when you're already putting in $2.7 billion in the Dangote refinery as an equity stake. So, that's that about that. For power, look, we don't, unless you have effective metering, unless you know exactly how much on the consumption side is being used, you're going to have this type of abuses that we've seen with government institutions. Look, there's anecdotal evidence or stories of power holding officials from the discos going to maybe military barracks or so to try to get them to pay and being chased away. So those are the kind of issues that you're facing. We need effective metering to know exactly how much power everybody is consuming so that we can get this sorted out.
Well, Rotus, a number of issues here. First, the president of Egypt should be reminded of how bread can be a catalytic factor in revolutions. In 1789, in France, a certain princess married to, I think, Louis XVI. Louis XVI, not Louis XIV, Louis XVI. And she talked about, if they cannot eat bread, why don't you give them cake? And that led, eventually, inexorably, to the French Revolution. So you should be very careful about bread. That's just going the way of history. As for Ghana, the crisis in Ghana, I think, can be traced to December 7, 2020, when they had that general election, in which the National Patriotic Party, the party of the incumbent president Nana Akufo-Addo, won with a very small majority in parliament. And then the NDC, the major opposition party, was said to have lost that election. And that's set the stage since for all kinds of situations in Ghana. Now, Ghana has a debt profile that has gone up astronomically. Ghana has issues with infrastructure. Ghana has issues with inflation. All of these economic issues have also been part of the problem. And you could say that those who are opposed to the administration, in my view, have helped to accentuate this, all leading to a situation whereby you now have, since May, a rebellion against the government. Fix Ghana, fix the country, all kinds of people complaining about poverty, all of this in the context of the pandemic. And then in terms of its responses, the Ghanaian government has not, in my view, been smart enough. Persons have been killed in the course of the trials, young people. One of them, the activist Ibrahim Mohammed, popularly known as Kaka. So instead of trying to manage the situation and listen to the people, the government of President Nana Akufo-Addo has been provoking young Nigerians even more. In the course of this, the NDC, the opposition party itself, had to stage a protest. The labor union also had to stage a protest. So part of the problem is the attitude of the government. And in the midst of all this crisis, the government of President Nana Akufo-Addo complicated his own situation further by having his government propose an executive bill against the LGBT plus community in Ghana. The sexual minorities in Ghana and their supporters in diaspora have risen against that government. But what is the lesson from all of this? The lesson from all of this has to do with how we manage democratic processes in Africa. If you think that you can manage an electoral process and have your way by force, then the forces will come after you. The Supreme Court, the top court in Ghana, gave victory to Nana Akufo-Addo, but he doesn't have that victory on the streets of Ghana. And the young people of Ghana are speaking up. They are saying that we do not want this and that this government is not functioning. I think Nigeria should also pay attention to what is going on in Ghana, because our destinies as neighbors often seem to be intertwined.
Right, thank you so much. Rotus, that book was Time Traveler's Guide to South Africa 2030 by Frank Corrigan. Great book on South Africa. That was the book I was trying to remember on air. We'll go to a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk COVID. All right, welcome back to the morning show. Adesu, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rufai. And let's look at the latest data from the Johns Hopkins University tally. At the moment, COVID-19 infections have surpassed 200 million globally. More than 4.2 million deaths have been recorded, and also more than 4.2 billion vaccine doses have been administered. Please keep in mind, many of those include 2 shots to be fully vaccinated. And to Nigeria now, where the country recorded its highest daily count of infections in months. 774 new infections were posted in the last 24 hours, and 4 COVID-19 related deaths. We saw Lagos again post, of course, almost 500 infections for the day. Still in Nigeria, yesterday we heard from the Food and Drug Administration of the country. It says it is working round the clock to test the Moderna vaccine that was recently delivered to the country. The Director General of the agency, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, was speaking in the nation's capital, Abuja, during a sensitization program against fake drugs organized by NAFDAC, of course. Let's listen in to what she said exactly.
The health of our people is premium to us in NAFDAC, and right now we are doing the testing. It's not something you go to the lab and in 2 hours you come out. No, it may take 3 days, 4 days, but we are trying to shorten it as much as possible. But Our goal is to make sure that the product is of quality, and that is what we're going to deliver.
The NAFDAC boss there, no definitive date has been given, but from what she has said, by the weekend, hopefully, Nigeria would have had the Moderna vaccines tested for its safety and efficacy, and inoculations can resume in the country. Well, let's go out of Nigeria, where the address unequal distribution of the life-saving COVID-19 jabs, the World Health Organization yesterday called for a halt on COVID-19 vaccine boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated. The WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus made the appeal mostly to wealthy nations that have far outpaced the developing world in numbers of vaccinations. The WHO is also saying that there's no proven data at the moment to suggest booster shots are needed at this time. But in a swift reaction, the U.S. rejected the WHO call for the booster shots moratorium, describing it as false choice. The White House spokesperson said that the Biden administration believes it can allot jabs for domestic booster shots should they be recommended for domestic use by health authorities in the country, while continuing its efforts to distribute vaccines worldwide, saying basically they can do the two at the same time. And away from there to, still in America, the governor of Arkansas says he regrets approving a statewide ban of face mask mandates earlier this year and has called the state legislature into a special session in an effort to amend the law. Arkansas is one of those states where you're seeing high infections at the moment, driven by the Delta variant. And finally to Burundi, where the country is preparing to accept its first COVID-19 vaccines after becoming one of the last countries in the world to embrace them. It was not immediately clear how many doses the East African country will receive or when they will arrive. This leaves only Eritrea on the continent as the country yet to speak about vaccines or receive any.
Well, okay, here we go. Let's start with WHO calling for COVID-19 vaccines boosters to be suspended in favor of the unvaccinated. Where Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus is coming from is understandable. The WHO is saying that, look, you have to reach the underprivileged parts of the world and ensure broader vaccination, global solidarity, and not have a situation whereby countries that have been able to vaccinate up to 70%, 60% of their population, even if it is with the first dose, or even more, as in the cases of countries in Europe and countries in North America, then begin to talk about booster doses. You recall that the WHO, the WTO, the G7 have been calling for developed countries supporting privileged countries.
Yes.
Now, with the crisis that we have with supply chains in the world, this is like, there's a saying in Yoruba, but I don't want to speak Yoruba again on the program. It's about when some people are already filled. You have eaten more than enough. And then you are taking dessert. When some other people have not even had a bite of it.
Yeah.
Many countries in the world have not even been able to do 1% vaccination. So that's where the WHO is coming from. And that same argument is supplied with regard to the plan by some countries to vaccinate people 12 to 17. And the argument simply, in 17 countries of the European Union, is that if you do that, apart from the risks that they perceive, it's also that you will reduce the amount of supply that low-income countries, emerging markets, underprivileged countries can get within the context of the philosophy of the, belief that if no one is safe, then everyone is at risk.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where the WHO is coming from. But the US has been tinkering with the idea of a booster vaccine. And that is based in some scientific studies in Europe and at the University of Oxford that, look, when you get a booster vaccine, it increases your immunity level. But what we should say in this regard is that, look, the rich countries, the privileged countries, should not think of themselves alone. They should think of other persons in other parts of the world, so that at least all of us can get at least, some vaccines. And then you can begin to think of boosters, and then begin to think of a certain level of the population that is not necessarily at risk. As for Burundi, it's good that Burundi now has received some doses, some packages of the vaccine. It's a big development in the sense that Burundi at the time was at the same level as Tanzania.
Yes.
The late president of Tanzania, John Magufuli, and the late president of Burundi, what was his name again? Pierre Nkurunziza. They were organizing elections, they were organizing football matches, they were organizing spiritual night vigils, because they thought that the vaccine did not mean anything, and there was nothing serious about COVID-19. What is worse in the case of Burundi is that Evariste Ndayishimiye, who succeeded Pierre Nkurunziza, also decided to toe the same line as Pierre Nkurunziza, who, although they denied it, died from COVID-19 complications, along with some members of his family. So for Burundi, this is a major turnaround, coming almost exactly a week after the United States donated, the same United States, donated 1 million doses to Tanzania. Yes. And we saw former Vice President Samia Suluhu, launching, the vaccination program in Tanzania, and setting a good example by taking the first jab. I would like to see President Evariste of Burundi also providing leadership in this regard. As for Nigeria, yes, we have heard from Professor Adegaye, the head of NAFDAC. Yeah, that test, she says, well, it will not take a long time. By this weekend. Can they hurry up? Because Moderna has already been tested, worldwide. We've been told that, even the WHO is the preferred choice for children when some other countries begin to do teenage vaccination. So this testing and all of that, yes, it's in order. If they donate something to you, you have to look at it to make sure that it's not fake. But once they hurry up with it, we do not expect that the MPHCDA would take a whole week to then decide on the sharing formula. And that these states are already on standby to make sure that the vaccination continues apace. The other issue she raised is about the drug crisis in Nigeria. How there's so much fake and adulterated drugs circulating aimlessly, freely inside Nigeria. That in itself is a major threat to national security, to human health, to public health, to the security and welfare of the Nigerian people. It's not enough for the DG of the NAFDAC to lament about it. We would like to hear what exactly government is doing to check the proliferation of fake drugs and adulterated drugs, and even those drugs that these young people take, codeine, and it's Rufai that knows those drugs.
Rufai, you know those drugs?
Okay.
You know the drugs?
I don't know any drugs. Two things. Okay. Number one, I think it's a time for collaboration, and the world has to collaborate because we are all in this together. So if some people think because they have bought enough jabs for their nation, they are not free. And that has shown, because you see, you can buy enough jabs, but administering the jab is another thing. And Canada showed that recently. Canada had 5 different doses to one person. But because they didn't get their vaccination process on, the case started to rise at some point again in Canada. So that shows you that getting the jab is not just enough. We need collaborations. And for the fact that you're not extending the hand of collaboration to other parts of the world that have not been vaccinated, they will definitely bring that disease to your part again. And that's why people like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, were part of those that started that collaborative effort by putting the first $150 million necessary for the Serum Institute to be able to produce Novavax and AstraZeneca. Because Serum Institute needed $850 million. They could raise about $300 million. Somebody needed to bridge the gap. So that collaboration is key. And for what too many times we think we can do it all alone, especially the rich nations. And that's why two things. They must facilitate that process of the fill and finish that is to start in South Africa 2 years from now, and Egypt and some other parts, and ensure that Africa gets. Because if Africa doesn't get, people will still travel from Africa overseas, and they'll get the virus and they'll put it over there. India is another case. India, there's a possibility of a third wave or a fourth wave might be coming to India now. So we are not out of the woods yet as regards the fight. And it is important for us to go back to those, non-pharmaceutical methods. The governor of Arkansas came out recently to say that he regrets not enforcing the mask mandates. And that's shocking for all of us, and that should be a lesson. Because we still have people that go around in Lagos and some other parts, and they don't think of taking their face mask. Even restaurants in Lagos now, they don't ask you for your face mask any longer. It looks as though we have forgotten the mask mandate. So this is the time to go back to it. And most importantly, it should also be a time for us in this crisis to celebrate those that have gone one step further to provide solution, through science and medicine for the cure for COVID-19. And that's why I'm excited that a doll-making company celebrated one of the great scientists that work on the AstraZeneca vaccine, Professor Sarah Gilbert, by making a doll to honor her. And that's really very important because we still have a country where a lot of women are not participating in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. We need more women scientists like Professor Sarah Gilbert that will crack the code and bring out vaccines to save the world like AstraZeneca. She's been knighted by the Queen, but I also think a doll-making company to make dolls so that girls can play with Barbie dolls in the image of Professor Sarah Gilbert will go a long way in inspiring them to go into science. And I'm really happy about that. We should also use this to inspire our women in this country.
Well said.